You want to mix the aggregate from your area with the Part C cements. It is a 2-to-1, the Part C cements. Aggregate match is pretty much half the battle when you're wanting to match existing concrete. So you want to use an aggregate or a sand mix that's a masonary sand, or the sand mix that is at the local producer. This has everything from a very, very small particle to up to 12 grit. You really don't want to go any larger than 12 grit in your sand mix with whatever you're using. You do want to cover the entire spectrum of sizes. If you're only using 2 sizes, you're really not going to create a good matrix, and a good matrix is also important for polishing. So I'm going to take these 2 parts and that 1 part of cement and mix them together with a box mixer in the 5-gallon bucket. I'm mixing 3 gallons because I have about 500 spalls. So I'm going to get 150, 170 spalls per 3 gallons. So I want to mix up enough for this one project so I don't have to remix any material. If I have some left over, I can always use it later on something else. You're going to put the matchstick on the floor. The first thing you want to do when you get to the job site is take things to 400 grit. The matchstick has been polished to 400 grit and it has no guard on it. So you're going to all you have to do is just a real small area to 400, but you do have to densify it at 200, because of course densification does affect the color. You always come up darker after you densify. And that's the reason why this is also densified. So I'm looking at this right now, and right here in the middle, more than likely MP8 is going to be what we're looking for here. When you're looking down at the matchstick and comparing it to your sample on the floor, you're going to have your eyes, as you move, things can change color. So if you just take your smartphone and put it on camera, take a picture of it, you can blow it up. This thing's going to flip for me. So it goes that way. Anyway, you can get a comparison where you're not moving your eyes around and see it even better. So I'm looking at this. See, I'm still leaning toward number 8 there. Number 8. Number 8 were a number 1 black and a number 2 brown. So basically I'm just going to add 2 brown, 1 black to this, and add it to an 11-ounce mix. A lot of people have been curious about how I make the matchsticks. Basically I make a slab and I polish both sides and then I slice them up. But this is a good opportunity to show you how the colors are mixed. There are 2 sizes for colors. There's an 11-ounce mix, which you're going to use in a mock-up, or if you only have a few patches, you'd want to use the 11-ounce mix. This is an 11-ounce scoop. This is what you scoop up your sand cement mixture that's already colored with and dump it in here. This is 11 ounces to the top. On the bottom is number 2 and number 1. This is a 16th teaspoon. This is an 1/8 teaspoon. Inside the handle is number 2, number 1 measure for 1 gallon or 4 quarts of mix. These are the 2 colorants you'd use for that. There are only 2 colors, black and brown. Makes it pretty simple. So if I'm doing an 11 ounce mix, whatever the chart says according to the stick, that's where I'm going to start out. And that chart is right inside the handle of the scoop. So if I had matched my concrete to say MP7, I go here to MP7 and it's 2 black and 1 brown. So I would add 2 black here, a number 2 black, and a number 1 brown at the same time, or an 11 ounce mix. If I'm doing a 1 gallon mix, I'm going to add 1 number 2 and 1 number 1 of brown and mix those. You want to mix your colorants even if you're using 3, 5 gallons, 10 gallons on a project because you have a lot of patches. You want to mix your color in one at a time. Transfer those into a large 5-gallon bucket, 3 at a time, and then mix those all up. It's important to keep continuity in your colors. I'm not a big fan of dumping everything together in a 5-gallon bucket at once and mixing it together. $11-ounce mix. So mix that in. We're starting with number 1, MP1 in the handle. MP1 is number 1 black. I'm going to add number 1 black. It's important to wear gloves when you're doing this. Don't get isocyanates, resins, cements, or anything into your skin, or even the pigments. And I'm going to mix this up, and even though a little goes a long way, I'm going to mix it up for about 20 seconds just to make sure that you're got the colorant spread properly throughout. Everything is a dry colorant. Then I want to mix the resins. Make sure you shake both. These have already been pre-shaken. These cups you can get in just about any hardware store. Right up there to the line, 150 ml or 2 ounce. Always pour the dark first, that way you can see it. Then fill it up to the 4 ounce mark. This one's a number 5, but a number 6 caulking tool rounded like this works the best for mixing and applying, we found. So it's a very low viscosity resin. Mix it until you don't see any streaking. Mix half the grout powder. Make sure it's all completely mixed in there. You don't want any dry pockets. Pour the rest in. And if I was on the job site, I would simply take this and while mixing would walk to where the patching area is, because you do have a limited time. Okay. You can see it's a lot like a peanut butter consistency. Now I'm going to go ahead and dump this all in here. Always wipe your tool off before you start the next batch. Have that ready. I'm getting ahead of myself. For the part B, the 2-ounce mark or the 50 mils. For the part A, part B, pour that up to the 4-ounce. You want to use the dark mix first. That way you can see your lines. This is a caulking smoother. Works best for mixing these materials up. You don't have to mix this very long because you don't have very long to put the material down. Just mix it until it's streak-free in one color. Add about half of your powder. Mix that in. So I'm trying to eliminate any dry pockets. Mix the rest in. Now you're ready to patch. We're filling our 1/8 inch because it's got resin in it and the aggregate's heavy and it's going to fall a little bit, and we're trying to match the salt and pepper sands. Beautiful.
Good job.
I've already got the pigment mixed in there. The Grout formula is 1:1. So what I'm mixing, you can do 4 ounces to 4 ounces, 8 ounces to 8 ounces, 16 ounces to 16 ounces. Four ounces of A. Four ounces of B. Pour all the powder in at once with the grout formula. If you're on the job grouting, pretty much what you see in the color after you've got it mixed up, and you got to mix it up very well. If you're mixing up bulk amounts to actually grout across a whole floor, use a jippy mixing drill or at least a box type mixer, masonry type mixer. But I could keep adding black or brown to this and make it as dark or as light as I want. And typically you're going to end up with just about that color whenever you're with what you've mixed up, where the aggregate filled does change colors. To influence, if you think you're a little light or whatever, you can influence the color with the grout. But what the grout does is it not only gets your pin cracks, but also it tightens the surface up, so you're going to get a good polish out of it. It's real simple. 8 ounces of resin, 8 ounces of colorized cement. So what I'm going to do So I'm gonna mix this. I already put some color in here. But you can color the grout to taste. So in other words, what you see in the mix is pretty much what you're gonna get. Don't use the same tool for the A and the B.
Yeah, so for the grout code, he's saying it's 8 ounces of everything. 8 ounces of A, 8 ounces of B.
The grout's 50-50. If you're only doing a little bit, if you're just grouting over the patches, use 4 ounces and 4 ounces. 6 ounces and 6 ounces, 8 ounces and 8 ounces. Okay, we notice here,
Yeah, each one has a smell.
okay, of course, the dark side is gonna be darker. The light side is gonna be lighter. So when I mix these two, this is gonna be kind of dark, yeah, but we ended up light over here, right? So I wanna go a little darker.
Or the same part.
If you got a bunch of pin cracks and that type of thing, load the grout in the gun. You only have 20 minutes after you mix this up because you're gonna get settlement, right? So you don't wanna do this in the morning and use it in the afternoon. You wanna mix it when you need it. It's pretty simple to load these cartridges. It's got the cap on the end, you're gonna pull that off first. This is how they come. It's got the end caps. It's no different than what you've been buying with the fancy label around it and stuff. So I'm gonna take this side. Put it here. This side. Put it here. Cap in. I'm not going to push that because I don't want the air to blow out the top and make a mess. If you're doing a lot of these, you'll put all these upside down in a 5-gallon bucket. Make sure it's seated fairly well. Turn it over. Then pull these caps. Now I'm going to seat it. Take your static mixing head, put it over the top, just like the other ones. Okay, who wants the tool over the patches?
Tony, gloves? Need some gloves? Okay.
There's some gloves right there.
Yeah, you need gloves, brother. Always need gloves when you're working with this product.
Yeah.
You can't mess around with this. Always have gloves. Here you go, Tony.
Well, that's not too
You
right.
don't have 2 left hands?
Yeah. That's both.
What's rule number 1 when you're using one of these setups?
Don't tilt it down.
Bring it up the tip, bleed it off, so you know that you're going to harden. Now the difference between this is, and like the polyurea, we got 8 minutes. We can leave it in the tube for 8 minutes.
You got a good gun, even?
Going in there.
So put that. Yeah, it's going.
There it goes. The reason for grouting is you're always going to miss something. You're always going to miss some cracks and stuff. And your larger patches turn out so much better because they can be a little bit porous if you grout them. It's not necessary, but it always polishes up nicer. So we grouted those. The big crack back here we grouted. All the bigger spalls we grouted. And this big control joint right down through the center. All that's done. Wait 40 minutes. And it's ready to cut. It's best to cut it with metals, that way you don't have any kind of a resin shadow. So this floor started out as 60/80, and that's when I grouted it. Now I'm going to do a quick run of the 60/80 only over the grout areas. This floor is soft enough that I can go straight to 100 grit hybrids after this. And we'll be finishing up here in just a couple hours. Turned out all right. You don't see the patches and the reflection, and that's part of the point.